Hey Skyfarers, and welcome to Aethercast, the Kharadron Overlords podcast. I'm Lee, the Arcanet Admiral, and I'm joined today by three great admirals to help crew the good ship Aethercast. Tending to the main engine, we have Engine Master Adeptus Isis, Alex Thibaudeau. How are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. How about you, Lee?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. What have you been up to recently?
Hobby-wise, it's a bunch of nothing, to be honest with you. I've been building my my Countess Luminate army as Dwarden because I do like the rules. I think they feel really dwarfy, and I'm proxying them with old Warhammer Fantasy dwarves. So I'm slowly building that, and but hobby-wise, in Canada. We don't have much room for hobby time. It's not exactly a lockdown. It's still we don't have that much liberty. So still hoping for 2021 to be a better hobby year.
That's pretty interesting. They're building a basically an elf army out of dwarves.
Yeah. Well, I just find that the rules like the -1 to hit, rerolling saves, stuff like that. I just feel like it's more defensive. It's more like what the old Wardens or dwarves used to be in fantasy and sort of AOS, like ignoring rand, stuff like that. So it's a mountain team, obviously. I'm just using like proxy miniatures from Atlantis miniatures, Cyborg miniatures. I do have those Ram Riders to proxy for the Dawn Riders. So it's a great looking army. I'm just slowly building it, and hopefully by 2021, like when we're going to be able to gather again, it'll be ready. I call them my Dwarden Realm Lords.
Dude, that's amazing. I was thinking about that, but I would never like actually go out and doing it. Now I have to. when you're done, I want to see it.
Well, I can see it with the mountain theme. Yeah.
While you guys just chat, I'll go get some models to show you. All right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
While he's doing that, I'll introduce everyone else then. So in the Navigator's Crow's Nest, we have Mr. Kyle Calip. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Yeah. Nothing new here.
No? Okay then.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the FAQ. I haven't been playing too much because I'm like, well, I'll hit the ground running right when we get the nerf hammer. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's not really the time to build stuff. When
No.
or start thinking, I'll try out this list and practice this because it could be going away.
I mean, hey, Brock might be getting a huge buff. That's why they're selling him in his Christmas box.
It's the Brock meta.
The Brock man is coming up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Then round. Oh, here we go.
So
Can we
that's
make
my
it big? Can we make it larger?
Avalnor, like the Spirit of the Mountain. This is from
Ooh.
Cyborg miniatures.
There we go.
Dude.
So with both axes, so that's my Avalonor Countess.
Yeah.
This is my Cathalar Countess. This is like a wanderer, like a priest, also from Cyborg. I have this as my Stone Mage.
Oh yeah.
This.
Gonna need some links afterwards.
Oh yeah, sure. And these are my vaunted Ram Riders, my Dawn Riders Countess.
Let's get those.
Yes. Are those from Lord of the Rings?
No, these are from Atlantis miniatures.
Okay.
All the base sizes are correct.
Yep, exactly. I bought like extra bases, so
Nice.
it fits exactly. So these are genuine Dawn Rider bases.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to receive my next shipment, both from Cyborg and Atlantis for the crossbowmen for the Sentinels, and I got the Eagle Guard or something like that, like Dwarden with big axes and shields for the Sentinels, and I'm gonna use another unit called Iron Hammers for the Stone Guard.
Nice.
So that's my project.
Okay.
I don't-
Well, I don't need an 11th army, but
Yeah.
So, are you doing Techless?
Yeah, actually, I was on a French-Canadian podcast just a few weeks ago while I talked about that project of mine, and someone suggested I build like this brewery scenery. Like I got the old Bugman miniature, the old Joseph Bugman. So instead of having like Teclis, I'm gonna have Joseph Bugman in his brewery with all his clientele and stuff like that. So it's gonna be like a flying brewery, something like that.
I saw earlier today, I think it was, a link on a Facebook group for a train company, and they actually had some brewery kit. So
Really?
yeah, I'll send you a link.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that.
On that.
I haven't started yet on that model, but yeah, that'll be great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. And maybe the pizza oven, you might be able to get some bits out of that or something. You know, the fire slayer bit.
First idea was actually having like a Rune Lord conclave. I got all the old anvils, the Anvil of Doom, like the one Thoric kit from Fantasy, the old anvil on wheels. So I was thinking about like building this conclave that summoned Grungeny or something like that, but I don't know. I kind of like the brewery thing better.
The brewery thing's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. So yeah. I don't know. I'll see.
You could say like that the rule he has where he basically makes people like the units around him immune from magic on a full pass. You could just say he's like handing out beer.
Oh yeah. I saw on a Facebook group someone who used like instead of Ether Gold tokens, like those small Play-Doh beers. So these are gonna be my so these are gonna be my Ether Quartz token.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Nah, what you also could do is just a really big rune of anvil of power. You know.
Also.
Like just one dude. Oh, actually, I'm gonna share with you my idea real quick. So you know how Whalebiter is the new Mega Gargant?
Yeah.
For Order, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to have him in Fire Slayers, but I don't want to spend $200 to do that. What I could do is get the base size, get a huge mountain, and put Gotrek on the top. And just have a massive, and then have all these Skaven bodies just like piling up.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And then he just like punches around.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Just a really fancy base.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One tiny dwarf on a really tall, fancy mountain.
That would be cool.
That would be fun.
Oh yeah.
I better introduce the final member of the good crew for Aethercast tonight. On the gun deck, frantically polishing his Aether rifle, Mr. Alexander Krohn.
Hello. Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Good to be back.
What have you been up?
Writing.
I mean,
very good articles, by the way.
Oh yes.
Writing an article for Warhammer Community. That was kind of cool. Yeah. Although, so I tried putting some things in of helping people to play KO, but mostly what they wanted was, how do you beat KO? It's like, okay.
You play the game as it was intended.
Yeah.
Don't.
So what you do is you play for those objectives.
Yeah.
Those things that win you the game. Screening, have big things that can jump over screens, use your own screens. Yeah, just be on all the objectives. KO with the current meta list is just a small group of guys that drop into one spot and shoot your army off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, spam the board in all landing zones. That's pretty much how you play it.
Don't have one big thing that gets kicked off the board.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
If your entire army plan is one unit that's 500 points, then you're gonna lose.
Pretty much.
Unless that one unit is Morothy, because she can't get shot.
Yeah.
In one turn.
Yeah, there's a new Daughters of Cain. I listed that. I've talked about this guy before. That Greg, he's one of the really big players in the United States. He made a Daughters of Cain list, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
Oh really?
Is it the shooting meta?
No, it's got Marathi, 30 Sisters of Slaughter, 10 Bloodstalkers, 20 groups of, so two groups of 10 witch elves, a what do you call it? The
Cauldron.
The cauldron thing.
Cauldron? Yeah. And so and Hag Queen on the cauldron. I believe that might be most of the army. Oh, and the new Iron Scale.
Okay.
To move those but yeah, so the issue is you can't kill Marathi, because you can't. You can't kill enough of the Sisters of Slaughter that they don't just kill you, because even if there's like 5 left, the amount of attacks they do, 6-inch pile-in is absolutely nuts. It's like the most broken mechanic I think in the game. Just to have that on your war scroll is like ridiculous. And then the 10, even if you kill everything else in the army, if they have 10
On a podcast,
blood,
what's up?
the Mulusai left, they can still put out 50 attacks. Or, So.
And they have some new, very good battalions in the new Marathi book. Yeah,
so it's pretty scary. I had to play against him in the tournament that I was playing. I was Nar, I think, when I was the last thing I did. Yeah, and I was like, man, if I have to run into that in melee, this is not gonna go. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Another weakness of KO is basically if there are units like Witch Elves or Sisters of Slaughter that even 4 or 5 can wipe out units, it's really hard for us to wipe everything off the board. And if you leave some units alive, they're gonna eat us.
Yeah. Armies where you have 100% everything is a threat.
Yeah.
And KO kind of like can't do anything.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think we're about to showcase some armies that are going to try really hard to be able to do that, wipe everything off the board kind of stuff.
Yep.
Do you guys know about
Welcome to Zilfin,
the new Daughters of Cain unit as well, the Warcry unit?
Yes, the Shadow Stalkers. They look. They
don't have.
I reckon they're going to get seen. They've got their 100 points now.
Oh, 100?
Oh, they have points.
100.
Okay, I didn't see that.
They are absolute bargain.
So they have
teleport everywhere.
They have essentially they have fly high, yeah.
So they're like the Sylvaneth.
The Tree Revenants.
Tree Revenants, yeah. Tree Revenants are 80 points. So these guys are only 20 points more, but you get a hero. That's kind
of get a shooting. They have shooting attacks. They're harder to hit in melee. They do a few things. Like they don't. They can do a little bit of damage.
It's kind of scary, actually. I was looking at it, and I'm like, man, I was expecting to be 140, 150 points. But if it's 100 points, then that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
and they can just teleport all over the board.
I can see people taking either. I think their units are 9, and I think the max size is 18. I think you'll see people either taking them like 2 units of 9, or so a couple, or 1 big unit maybe.
I own
to have that teleport.
So now I have to use it.
I'm definitely going to use them in my Daughters of Cain. That's for sure. Yeah. Because they threaten all objectives on the board at once.
Yeah,
existing.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, they're just basically a KO ship, but they're more bodies, and they don't have to be more than an inch from terrain or objectives.
Yeah. Why is that a rule? Why do we have that rule?
It makes sense. No, there's a good reason for that. Being that terrain, you measure terrain. You measure distances shooting in AOS actually diagonally. So I ran into this problem where I moved a frigate on top of a tall mountain, and then they told me that you have to measure this way. So I was outside of, I was 18 inches
flat
on the X-plane, but not, And so it makes for really awkward rulings when you can just fly high and land on top of tall terrain. So from a design perspective, it makes more sense just to say, okay, you're not doing that. You're not going to drop your giant boat with your entire army inside of it on top of something that no one can get to.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it would be a great rule. It's already a great rule. Now, if you remove those conditions, it would be a bit too good to be true, to be honest, I think. But you're right, Cal. It makes perfect sense. Game wise, it's perfectly logic.
Yeah, and there's a practical point of view as well. If you put your big ship on there, on like wobbly model with a massive base, and it falls off, and small units with small bases, you can normally put them on top of terrain relatively safely. But once you get to the big bases,
I think that's an issue they saw in 40K with they put tanks on top, flying tanks that would sit on top of buildings. And so
I've seen those. Yeah. Looks horrible.
No, yeah.
So the rest of the news, I've got some news about Gotrek today. Just for, like the new book with him is basically he is annoyed about having the Fire Slayer rune like embedded in his body, so he goes to the KO and they manage to take it out for him. And then I can't remember which Skyport it was. Barak Zilfin, I think, might be.
Barak Urbaz, yeah.
Yeah, and basically then that gets attacked. The Skyport gets attacked by a load of gits. So, don't know. It might be.
So this is going to be the Siege of Urbaz. Could be cool.
It could be a cool little book to read to get some more knowledge about KO and stuff.
When does that come out?
I don't know.
I don't think they really put out release dates. Unfortunately, they just said, "Hey, here are books that are coming out."
Yeah.
Eventually.
Well, it's like Center reveals.
I mean, it's a Sunday preview, so it could just be that they're on pre-order next week. I don't know. Don't know really how it works with Black Library, to be honest.
I need my Siege of Terror book. That's what I need.
And I think is that pretty much it, news-wise.
We did get like a non-news basically with Bugmanson getting rules for Warcry, but not for AOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is one other thing, which is not really game specific, but if you haven't seen it already, then there's the cool Bugmanson Christmas delivery video where he goes and delivers presents to people in an ironclad with Christmas lights on it. That's pretty cool.
Blows up some Zinch, shows them who the real S-tier army is.
There you go.
There's apparently a load of Skaven hiding in like the toy workshop as well.
Okay.
So, he's going to clear them up.
So, but I don't know. It's pretty cool. It was nice to see. I liked the ironclad with the Christmas lights on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that there was a link. Like you go to that thing, and they specifically hyperlink the word ironclad, so they can take you to the store page where it's out of stock. Just so you know, you can't buy this thing.
Yeah. No, they do that a lot, linking to pages. Just good SEO, but it's not great if you can't buy it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm so hyped. Kharadron looks so cool. I need to get one of these. I need to put Bugman right on top. And then it's like, it's out of stock. You can't buy this anymore.
Maybe it's not out. Maybe it's not out of stock everywhere.
I don't know. Is it out of stock for you? You're in the UK, aren't you?
I don't know if it's out of stock, but they have like 3 distribution centers, like one in the US, one in Australia, and one in the UK. So it could be in stock in one of them. I don't know. We could if they did have it somewhere. Oh well. Should we move on to Zilfin?
Yeah, let's get into
everyone's tuned in. So, without getting into too many specifics, what do you all think of Zilfin? Would you agree it's probably the strongest Skyport?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think, I used to be a big tournament player, not so anymore. I only go like to one big event. If I were to go to a big event, I would bring a Zilfin list. But if not, if I don't want to lose friends, I'm going to bring my Zon list, which is still pretty good. It's just not as easy to win with as with Zilfin. So to me, it is clearly the best sub-faction, the best Skyport of the KO.
It's free. It's once per game hero move. Really, just sets it above everything else. The maneuverability you can do with Zilfin, you can't screen out a Zilfin list.
Exactly.
Zilfin will get whatever. Will be able to shoot whatever it wants, whenever it wants and put all 2,000 points of its firepower into exactly where it needs to just wipe out and neuter the enemy army. And if it gets a double turn, it just wins.
Yep.
Yeah, so the thing about KO and most armies in general is the fact that there exists trade-offs to every decision. Oh, sometimes you don't want to go first because you want to have a double. Sometimes you need to go first in order to get points on the board. Like specifically in Mornar, you have to, the decision matters because you have that pregame to placement at the start. The thing that breaks Zilfin is the fact that you can do anything you want and have no repercussions for doing it. There is no downside to going second or going first when you have the option to, and it's like better. You could not even use your trump card in the first 2 turns, right? So it's something that is just my kind of issue with it is that it's bad for the game from a game design perspective. It's like you have something, you should always have trade-offs. This army doesn't.
I agree.
Everything in here is good.
And if I can add to what Kyle just said, I think first of all, I think you're really spot on. You don't have any weaknesses or trade-offs, as you said. And the thing is, with Zilfin and KO in general, people think that KO's biggest strength is their shooting. It's not. It's movement. I really think that movement wins you the game. And adding all those extra movement rules, like the auto run 6, to me is magic as well. It's an awesome rule. I really think that these rules, paired with the standard KO rules, just put this Skyport above everyone else.
Yeah. So, if the game was just about pure shooting, Iron World Arsenal would be winning every event.
I agree.
But it's not. Iron World Arsenal it's got good shooting, but it's going to sit in one spot and never move. KO will get that shooting where it needs to be to do the maximum amount of damage to the most important parts of the enemy army.
Yeah. I remember when our new book came out. It came out at the same time as the new Zinj book. And people were complaining about the change hosts and how they had to redeploy 2 teleports per hero phase. But once you killed that Lord of Change, you lose them. Well, with KO, you don't have any limits to your redeploy, really. If you want to bring 4 ships, you can have 4 redeploys. And if you lose a ship, you only lose 1 redeploy. So to me, that is that rule, that high sky, that fly high rule, combined with everything else that Zilfin has to offer. I mean, to me, that is why it's the most competitive Skyport. And just like Kyle said, there are really no trade-offs to taking that Skyport.
Yeah, the way I would probably put it is fly high is probably the most powerful thing about the army because that's the thing that lets you put all of your shooting wherever you want it and move it around the board. And the once per game hero phase move means that you take fly high, which has some restrictions, and it just goes, oh, don't worry about those restrictions this turn. At least not for one of your ships. So,
sorry, Lee, go ahead.
It just means that you can do a lot of things that you couldn't normally do with fly high.
Yeah, and we talked before the show because we're gonna get there, but the greatest strength of that rule will be with the Warliving Vortex, of course. But and that's why I think that if you're a Zilfin player, in the next few weeks you might lose that edge, you might lose that ability. I think that the rule in itself is great. I think it's game breaking. If you change it to at the end of any hero phase, you can make that move. I think it solves a lot of issues. And I think while still a great rule, having an extra move before your movement phase is awesome. It's not as game breaking as it is right now.
Yeah. So we've referenced some of these rules a little bit. So we'll start with fly high, not fly high, with the hero phase move, which is Barak Zilfin's footnote. So it's called "There's Always a Breeze If You Look for It," and it's basically once per battle in your hero phase, one friendly Barak Zilfin unit can make a normal move, and then it says in brackets it can run, retreat, or disengage.
And this has been FAQ'd to allow you to fly high.
Yeah.
And to bring Skyriggers.
Yeah. There was debate about that when the book first came out. The FAQ clarified that you can. So yeah, and the Skyriggers can go with it as well. Was a little bit surprising. I mean, it kind of made sense that they could, but I don't know. It's I could have seen that going the opposite way as well, but that's how they ruled it. So the fact that you now have those clarifications in place means that you could run the list with impunity, really, because before the August FAQ, there was a little bit of you go to a tournament and have a bit of a worry that you might get ruled against in on one of those two things.
I know we did a couple episodes about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But so let's talk about a few things you can do with this ability. We mentioned the Warp Lightning Vortex. So because it's in the hero phase, the rule for getting in and out of a garrison is if you can't do it if the ship has moved or flown high in the same phase. So because that's a different phase, then it means you can get out in the movement phase. And also because it's in the hero phase, it means that you can do other things in the hero phase after having moved, like cast spells, or well, you can't cast spells plural, but you can if you've got spell in the bottle, you can smash that bottle.
Send out a Warp Lightning Vortex or a Demon Fire Rift if you've got a lot of wizards in your local meta.
Yeah.
I do want to point out the fact that the Fly High didn't necessarily make that impossible to do. Sorry, like before we got a clarification, I was running Chemists inside a gun hauler and moving the gun hauler 18 plus 6 inches in the hero phase, to get to do the exact same thing. But what this allows you to do that you couldn't do beforehand was move 20 Thunders, which we'll get to later.
How'd you get to 18 in your hero phase?
18, you can. Actually, a head full is only in the movement phase, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, mostly I was just doing 18 inches. You didn't really need to go farther than that because.
Yeah, I get it.
It does give you a bit more like viability with flight because you can fly high. You can just literally just deploy in the corner.
Yeah.
And go right. Well, I threaten the entire board with whatever spell or my choice is. Whereas,
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
And that's what I do every single game. You put an Ironclad right in the corner, surround it with a squad or two of Arcanauts, just so they can't hit it turn one. Sit there for a turn while your opponent moves around, does their thing, and then your turn one, you just go and shoot.
Yeah.
And then so the other thing is the fact that you have the decision no matter what to be like, oh hey, my opponent put all of their aura stuff, they're all stacked on top of each other, so I can choose now to go throw my Warp Lightning Vortex down, or if they didn't do that, then I could choose not to, and there was no downside to having to make that decision in the first turn.
You still disrupted their buffs essentially.
Yeah, like and then if they choose to move into buff range later, you can throw it on them later, right? Like it's so ridiculous.
And it puts the opponent in a tough position if your opponent outdrops you, because do you want to give first turn and eat the Warp Lightning Vortex and everything, or do you want to go first, put on your buffs, occupy the board, and then possibly be open to a KO double turn? So this is an impossible dilemma, really. So that's because of the Vortex, because of that rule combined together. To me, that's what makes the Zilfin list really strong.
I do want to put a disclaimer out there, as in, is this horrible for the game, period? Not necessarily, because battle plans in the game, like places of arcane power or stuff like that, the game is designed to kind of put you on edge, and having an opponent say that you're playing against Zilfin. It's an interesting situation for the opponent. So it's like, it's not bad that this is in the game, because there are ways around this still. Because people could still win if they play right.
I've lost games with Zilfin.
Yeah.
And
So
I
I'm
mean,
not going to
people
say
must,
what I'm saying is you're not going to win instantly just by taking this.
Yeah.
You're not playing Space Marines in 40k. You know, it's not stupidly broken, but it is. If you're playing this list, you're playing the sub faction. The other guy is like complaining. You gotta tell him like, hey, you know, you're practicing for in a realm where war is not always in your favor. Sometimes things don't go your way. You gotta adapt. If you're losing to this list, you're not adapting.
You know, I do agree. I do agree with what you're saying, meaning that it's not unbeatable. You know, the list is not unbeatable. There are ways around it. There are armies that will struggle against. But, you know, I've played Zilfin since, you know, the first book. And with the newest one, I feel like the fun factor for my opponent and for myself, to an extent, is not that great. And you know, competitive. You know, if I go to a competitive event, I'm gonna take that list and I'm gonna force it down your throat, and I won't feel bad about it. But 90% of my games are against like buddies, like people that I'm gonna hang out with, and if I take out this list, well, okay, well, that's gonna be a great evening. Thank you very much. So so that's why I moved away from it.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I don't use the Zilfin's Face Smasher 2000 thing in a friendly game against friends. Currently, I've been using Daughters of Cain for friendly games.
We are talking about the sub faction and hopefully attempt to make people like it. So there's my like. Oh, by the way, guys, if you're watching this and your opponent complains, just remind him that this is a game about adapting to different different circumstances, and it's a good trait as a human to have. Not always to like okay, accept the fact that this is a challenge and to work around it. But I agree, this thing is BS.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell my Beast of Chaos friend that you gotta get that down.
Oh, poor guy.
If you just try hard enough with your Ungors, you can beat it.
Play 99 games. At one point, every single shot is gonna miss. Statistically, you're gonna fail completely one time.
Yeah, I think you just, in a very eloquent way, said, "Get good."
Okay, let's get into this. So I think we'll talk more about the footnote when we get to lists, and we'll talk about what exactly you're doing with this. But let's go ahead and go back up to the abilities.
Yeah.
So what else can Zilfin do?
So
get a free battalion.
Yes. So I went to the footnote first because that's probably the main reason you take it. So let's go back to the beginning. You get magnificent sky vessels, which is basically one extra sky vessel in your army gets to have an engine work.
It's not bad.
So that's cool because there's good engine works available.
Not for frigates, amusingly, but yes, run 2 ironclads.
So you mentioned frigates, so let's talk about why that's amusing. Because frigates get to be battle line in Barak Zilfin.
Yep.
So,
the medium boat, 220 points per frigate, but they can be a battle line.
And that's pretty cool because with the new scenarios and new battle plans, you get more and more of them that, battle line grants you extra points or behemoths or heroes. So now I think that extra battle line, you can, park that frigate and objective and score you even more points. So that's something that's important.
And then the other thing, I always push Thunder frigates, which is funny because in Barak Nar, you can take Thunderers as battle line. But why would you take Barak Nar with their crappy rules when you could take Barak Zilfin and still get the same units that are battle line?
Yeah.
That's true.
But it's not like you could ever take like frigates as battle line to the extreme. That would just be silly, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it, Lee?
No one would ever do that.
No.
I don't think anyone would go on a YouTube show and show you any lists where they take that to the extremes. So
no, I think we should stop talking about that now.
No. There's a new Broken Realms book, a new Skyport that allows you to have ironclads as a battle line. That would be awesome.
I would be
Triple
all-
ironclad list.
I would
Yes.
be all over it. Because if I could have 3 ironclads, one with last word, one with buoyancy aid, and one with
Battle ram.
and fit 20 thunderers in the one with the buoyancy aid, that would be really cool.
Awesome.
Kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is that our only unit in the army that doesn't count as battle line at some point?
The ironclad. The heroes, obviously. But
Yeah, the ironclad. That's it.
That's it. That's fantastic. Our book is so
Yeah.
amazing.
yeah,
We went from only Arcanauts to everything but the ironclad.
yeah.
I remember only Arcanauts.
Yeah.
God, dark days. Dark days.
One thing about frigates being battle line is the way I interpret that is that for the battle plans where you get extra scoring, that is they wouldn't count as a behemoth.
They do not?
It says that's the way I. Because
Why not?
well, first of all, there's 2 FAQs for basically the same rule in other armies, and then for those FAQs, they say no, they don't count as behemoths. And the other thing is, it just says that they their battlefield role is they are a battle line. It doesn't say that they become battle line and behemoth. So
Terrorgeist lose behemoth when they become battle line.
Yeah. So my interpretation is it replaces their battlefield role with the battle line one. We haven't had an FAQ on it, so you might get a TO rule that they count as both. But if you bear in mind, there's two FAQs for the exact same wording, but for other armies, then I think it's safe to say that if Games Workshop were to be asked, that's how they'd go. That is a little bit of a shame because you mentioned how there's a lot of battle plans where it's beneficial to have battle line. There's also ones where it's beneficial to have behemoths. So you kind of you want to have a behemoth in a list, especially for something like focal points that's in a lot of tournaments.
But can you choose to have your frigate as either one of them? Like if you have enough battle lines in your army, can you choose not to be counted as a battle line unit?
Oh,
don't think so because it literally says battle line if Barak Zilfin. Doesn't say.
Yeah, I think all your frigates unfortunately become automatic battle line.
Okay.
So there, Barak Zilfin, don't take frigates.
So this Skyport kind of sucks now. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it just went from B tier to about E tier, I'd say.
Yeah, a little bit after NAR.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's reroll hits again. Because of the ability and the article, you basically have escort wing on flying units.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of funny. So you could just not take a battalion. I think you should, but you could just not take a battalion and have a lot of points to play with.
There's a lot of armies nowadays that don't use flying units.
Who needs to fly when you can teleport everywhere? Because everyone has teleports these days.
Yep.
True.
Seraphon don't have many big flying units.
Croak
Fire
flies.
Slayers.
All the
Croak
flying
flies.
fly.
Yeah. But it's only for sky vessels, so it used to be awesome, but now it's just that's cool for sky vessels, but you don't need it. It's a cool rule, but it doesn't do much for me.
Yeah,
it's all right. Just remember it when you got it.
Yeah,
but you got to remember one of the strongest armies in the meta right now only uses flying units.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else you get? You get don't argue with the wind, which is in your movement phase. If you declare a friendly Barak Zilfin unit will run, you don't make a run roll, and they just count as running 6.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah. It works because it doesn't just work on the ships; it works on all of your dwarven infantry. So your Arcanauts, you want to get them to get an objective, just move them 10 inches.
Thunderers, Arcanauts.
Yeah. You really want to get Prospects boats? Phosphex bombs into position. Just run your Endron Master 18 inches, throw them anyway, because it's not a shooting attack, it's an ability. Gone.
Yep.
Or you roll a 1 first up, Phosphex bombs.
It's just a really good ability, I think, that just free 6 inches movement when you need it without having to spend command points.
That's a free CP every time you use it.
It's
every time you run, it's a free CP.
Ridiculously good.
And if you take like 3 units of Arkanauts, then they can all run in the first turn and without the more units you have, the more you can make use of this potentially. And
if you're using Iron Sky attack, you can always go where you want to.
Yep.
So you can always go that 18 to 20 inches.
Yeah.
On those frigates.
I really get it for those 10-man Arcanaut units just at the start of the game to just grab all the objectives.
Yeah.
Those really fast-moving Arcanauts.
Yes.
Swift as the wind.
Hey, dwarves are natural sprinters.
Oh yeah,
they race over long distances.
Yeah. They should have called this rule like that: natural sprinters.
I don't think they were expecting people to be running. It'd be funny if I got an FAQ that said only sky vessels. It should be.
It used to be. It was in the old book. The Zilfin Run 6 was just for boats, and we were like, okay, but why would we ever run a boat though?
Yeah.
Now it's just like everything runs 6.
Yeah, it's just really good. One thing about it is it is only in the movement phase. So if you use the hero phase move, then if you want to run for that, then you will have to use a CB to get an auto 6 on that one. Which it's interesting that they kind of realised that would be a thing and just thought, well, we won't make it too strong. Forgetting that you can fly high. Forgetting that you can fly high in the hero phase, which is objectively better. But so moving on is the command trait, which I will just bring up a little comment on screen from the Gamers Manifesto. He says, oh wait, that's the wrong comment. Here it is. That's the one I wanted. The only thing close to a trade-off in Zilfin is the Master Commander command trait.
Yeah, it's no trade-off really.
So that's actually a buff. The fact that this makes this even more ridiculous. The fact that people don't need to take an admiral, don't need to take them as a general, and that you have a free command trait makes this better than like freaking anything like Urbaz where you want to have a chemist as your general, but you cut for collector. The fact that you can take collector, this is a buff. Not to mention, this is actually a really good ability, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
No one ever uses it, but
I actually forgot that Zilfin had a command ability that they had to take.
Like in and of itself, when you have characters like the Admiral who can endlessly use their, they have 4 command abilities, and they're all good. And there are a lot of situations where you actually do want to be using him if he's on the board, and so being able to actually have a 5-up, you could technically keep rolling 5-ups. Like you can get 3 or 4 of these things if you're having a hot day.
Yeah,
it's a really good command trait. Like I used to use it in Fire Slayers before they removed the Realm artifact that gave you this same ability. In order to like pump up Fire Slayers to like make an extra +5 to charge, because you just keep rolling 5-ups to keep pumping command points in. You can do the same thing with the Admiral to get +1 to hit, so you can get your boats to hit on 2s in melee. Not amazing, but you can do it, right?
Yeah. So
so go ahead, Lee.
I was just gonna, for anyone listening, because we have people that listen on the podcast as well as watch the show. What we're talking about is the Master Commander command trait, which basically must be given to the general if the general is an admiral. So you can dodge it if you don't have an admiral as general. And what it does is every time you spend a command point to use a command ability on the general's war scroll, you roll a dice, and on a 5+, you get an extra command point. What were you going to say about it?
You can dodge is an.
Oh, it's nothing big. I was just wondering. When we're probably going to talk about this in another show or whatever, but changes to KO eventually, like ways to maybe tone it down a bit. I've always wondered if flying high should be a command ability for the admiral. Like if you want to fly high with a boat, you have to have the admiral to use it. That would be like thematic. Or I'm just, talking for nothing. I don't know.
I think the worst thing they could do is make us roll for it. On a 3-up, you can actually fly high. It would probably be the best mechanic, like for balancing. But it would also be really horrible, like user experience.
I think the best mechanic would be to have it as a command ability for the admiral. It would fit the admiral's way of playing. It would make sense with all the command traits and the artifacts for the admiral. Yeah, it would make so much sense. And but I don't know. I just think that as a free ability, it's just a bit too strong. But that's just me.
The trade-off is you can't land on objectives because one dude's standing there.
Yeah.
You count as one model. But there are a lot of things that make fly high. Like a lot of times, actually, I don't even use it. I'll just move on to an objective because you can't do anything else.
You still have a lot of movement.
Yeah. It's nice to have just because it exists. I agree. Yeah. But there are a lot of balancing. Like it's not actually the most broken thing. It's the fact that you can...
I heard that pause. It's not the most. Oh wait, yeah, it is. Broken thing.
It's one model, dude. It's one model.
It's one model that carries like 20 models. It's just moving take every turn to wherever it wants to be, whenever it wants to be. It's fine. It's fine.
When it dies, everyone inside dies. I've lost 1,000 points off of one bad roll before.
Everyone else just has to buy battalions and to get one unit to do it once, but we just do it every turn. It's fine.
Yeah, that one wound gun hauler, he's gonna just get the hell out of Dodge and bring in a few friends with him. That's gonna be it. Yeah,
he's gonna go away. He's gonna get some friends. Gonna come back. He's gonna beat you up.
Exactly. and those friends will also heal him, by the way.
Yeah. So, and the last ability is the Artifact of Power, which has to be given to any Zilfin hero, so there's no way to dodge it. And it's called the Staff of Ocular Optimization, and essentially one of their missile weapons is +1 to hit. Which is
that's a huge trade-off. A mandatory artifact.
Yeah,
that's a huge trade-off.
It's the only tax that Zilfin has.
Yeah.
So it's not even a bad one. It's a really good artifact.
Yeah, I mean, the command trait and the artifact power are the two things in Zilfin that are close to being attacks, and neither of them is actually that bad because you can dodge the command trait, or you could actually make good use of the command trait. I mean, because the command trait is basically an Aether Quartz brooch, which people used to complain about. And then the artifact of power, I mean, +1 to hit is good. It's only on one weapon, but I mean, other than the Engine Master, the Flying Engine Master, who has 3 different shots. I mean, he still
works really nicely on a chemist. Actually, problem is the chemist just has those other 2 artifacts that you would always want to put on chemists.
Yeah, well, you have 2 chemists or 3 chemists.
Yeah.
Triple Iron Sky Command with 3 chemists.
Well, I've done it. That's what I used to do before the GHB. I did that. I do want to point out the fact that you ever wonder why the Admiral, the leader of the Sky Fleet, hits on 3s? It's because you can give him a +1 to hit with this artifact in the shooting phase if you take Zilfin.
So cool.
It should be 2s. It really should be 2s. It's kind of ridiculous that you can't hit on 2s. He has the same aim as an Arcanaut company.
Yeah. Well, if they're on an objective.
Yeah.
if not there was, because they might hit like 50-50 if they hit something. But basically, what this artifact rule says is, if you want spell in a bottle, then you need a battalion, or you need to take a chemist as your general with collector.
And then the thing before I forget is the fact that if you put this on your engine master dirigible suit and you put it on the weapon battery, 6 attacks, 2s and 3s, you have grudge bearer. Now you have 6 attacks hitting on 2s and 3s, and there's -1, 2 damage. You can do 12 damage.
18-inch range as well.
18-inch range, 12 damage. Is this just one? Yeah. That is a really good, like, because you typically want to take an engine master, probably, anyway.
He's so good.
Yeah. So as tax artifacts go, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. If we want to look at a bad one, go back to Barak Nar.
Yeah. One thing I do want to bring up, because I accidentally put it on screen earlier, is this. So it doesn't say, for anyone listening on the podcast, the Games Manifesto, earlier in the chat when we were talking about frigates being battle line, he says that they don't count towards the list building limit, so he interprets it as counting for both. It doesn't say anything about the limit. It literally just says battle line if Barak Zilfin. That's all it says. So yeah, and then if you take into account the two FAQs for the other factions that rule it that way, that's where we say it's that way. One other thing before we move on to lists, Yeti in the chat is saying he wants to start care, but he's only got about $150, so he doesn't want to pick up something that will never be used. What would
start collecting?
Yeah,
I
just get to start collecting.
We said this earlier. Every single unit besides the Ironclad is conditional battle line. You cannot buy anything in this army except for Brock that might not be used today.
So you're saying don't buy the new Battle Force? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you want to know whether you should buy the new Battle Force, then I have done a video on it if you want to go watch it. But if you want to build a 2,000 point list, you're not going to do it for $150.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know dollars very well, but so I work. I'm in England. But,
what kind of dollars? American, Canadian, Australian,
US, Canadian.
For about in Australian, $250 or $300 is kind of what, like, the cheapest really good 2,000 point list. I'm guessing it's USD.
in Australia, $150 won't even get you the start collecting box.
Will it get you a copy?
That's $165.
Wow. It'll get you a picture of the start collecting.
Yep. I don't even know what you can get for $160. You could get 2 gun hauler. No, it's not one. It's $150, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can get 20 Arcanaut Company.
I think if you assuming it's US dollars, I would say you can go for the start collecting. If you can split A for war with someone, you won't regret that.
I think that's a better deal.
Yeah, and the Battle Force box is good for someone that's starting out. You will probably want to convert Brock Grunson into an Endra Master with dirigible suit.
If we can get a good, what size base he's on.
He's on a 40 mil, but
I've
had it confirmed from someone that bought the individual one that they did get it with a 40 mil base.
Cool.
He says he is in the US. So
there you go.
Yep. Say through war half and 1 star collecting box. Or if you can't afford that, just get 1 star collecting box and then wait until you can afford more. Get the war cry as the other $50.
Yeah, the war cry is
You'll use what most of the things in the start collecting box. You use all of it. Maybe not the Endon Master.
I don't know, dude. I have three of those guys.
Pretty good here, man. Pretty good.
The war cry is really good for expanding on the start collecting set. Like you use the start collecting to get the gun hauler and the Endra Master cheap. If you want to have 2 Endra Masters, and you get 2 start collectings, and then you can use the war cry set basically to expand on your riggers and thunderers. So before we look at any lists, have you got any more final thoughts about the rules for Zilfin in general?
It's strong, man. It's really strong.
You know how the Hagnar is broken in Daughters of Cain? This is our Hagnar.
This is the old Gristlegore, the old Petrifex Elite.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's hope we don't get Petrifexed. I don't want to.
Yes.
Oh, we will. I'm betting we will.
Well,
Reroll run rolls of 1.
yeah. Well, we're used to nerfs, and we've had nerfs on that footnote before already. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. In the old book, they nerfed. There's always a breeze if you look for it, so it could happen again. Yeah. Let's look at some lists.
Do we have a date for when that FAQ is coming out? Or was it just sometime in this month?
Yeah, I think it's December.
Sometime mid-December. They normally come out on a Monday or Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday.
So it might be this week or next week, actually.
Yeah. So hopefully it won't come out on Monday and completely invalidate this show.
I'm guessing.
Hopefully we'll get at least a week out of the show. But,
we get until the 16th is my. I'm gonna put it right now.
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
All right.
Right now, calling it.
Yeah,
we'll do a show about it. That's going to be a big post FAQ show where we all cry a little bit, and then we build it back up. We build it back up.
If we're betting, then I'm going to go for the 14th. We'll see who's right.
I like underdog factions. That's why I started this. I'm great. I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm going to go for the 15th just to split the difference.
Okay. How about you, Adeptus?
I'm gonna go with 16th as well. I think that's, but just because Kyle called it, I'll go with the 17th, just for the heck of it.
I was gonna say, because if not, you had to split your winnings, split your A for gold share. Okay. Well, we'll find out who's right. We'll probably all be wrong.
On the 21st.
Yeah.
Turns out it actually comes out on the 18th.
Christmas Day. Christmas Day upload.
Brock is sorry. What's his name? Bugman is coming in with the nerfs. He's holding like anchored nerfs.
Dripping nerfs.
Yeah, you made all this and you checked it twice.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at some lists then. So, fair warning, we've got 3 lists to start that all have the Warp Lightning Vortex. So, they are a little bit different. So, this first one is basically a list built around the Iron Sky Command Battalion with the Warp Lightning Vortex. So you have the Endra Master of Dirigible Suit as the general, who has Grudge Bearer that Kyle mentioned a little while ago, combined with Staff of Ocular Optimization. So he is a pretty good hero hunter with his gun. Staff of Ocular Optimization would go on his weapon battery because it has to pick a specific weapon. Then you have a Chemist with Spend the Bottle. And then an Aetheric Navigator to round out the rest of the heroes for the battalion. 1 unit of 10 Arkanauts, 3 units of 6 Riggers, 2 of them with drill cannons and body cannons, and 1 with swords and pistols, 2 gun haulers, 1 with the spar torpedo and 1 with collapsible compartments, an ironclad with the battle ram, and the battalion and Warp Lightning Vortex. So this isn't a specific players list in general, but it's what most people would refer to as maybe the quintessential Zilfin list.
Yeah, I think it's the net list. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I think something like this was featured on Warhammer in the first Meta Watch.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you can play around with a couple of things here, but the key thing is you have an ironclad, you have the battalion, and you have the Warp Lightning Vortex, and you have riggers as battle line, so that they all fit in the battalion, so you're low drop. And then you have the gun haulers, so that you don't waste your engine works, because you get 1 as standard, 1 for your battalion, and then another 1 from the Zilfin rule. So you might as well, and then those extra 2 ships also give movement for your engine riggers as well, because they can hitch onto them. So examples of people that have used lists like this, Timo Weeble's tournament winning list was very similar to this, slightly different loadouts and weapons, and maybe a different command trait or different engine works, but yeah. So one of the things you can do with this, because you fly high in the hero phase with your ironclad that has the chemist inside it, You then you spend the bottle to put out the warp lightning vortex on your enemy, and then the ironclad and the 6 engine riggers with the swords and pistols, and potentially the engine master with dirigible suit as well, if he goes with it, they can all move again in the movement phase. So you're 9 inches away. You then move 10 or 12, depending which model it is, which means you're 3 inches away from enemy models, and then you get to charge. So you've got pretty much guaranteed charge with your battle ram, guaranteed charge with your engine riggers with swords and pistols, so they don't need to have a skyhook. And you can do a pretty big alpha strike with this.
Yeah.
Only thing I'd look out for in this list, you put down the warp lightning vortex. There's a very good chance that you might, if you're not careful, you're going to charge into that warp lightning vortex, and then you're going to be sad because all your stuff's blowing up too.
So you have
I'm not saying I've done 10 mortal wounds to an ironclad before, but
the only thing I would probably swap in this list would be I'd probably put in the engine master on foot instead of the navigator. And I would probably put both the chemist and the navigator in the gun hauler, and I would use that as my vehicle for the vortex.
Yeah,
that would prevent me from putting my ironclad too close to it, and that's probably what I would do.
The intention,
but other than that, my escort wing is a lot similar. Obviously, I'm a frigate guy. I prefer to have like thunderers, but this is a list I can get behind with. I can really like this list a lot.
The only reason why I was thinking that too, like why don't they just put it in the gun hauler? But if they want to use the battle ram, I don't think this list should use a battle ram. You have no hero.
No, I don't think so.
Really, this should be a last word list.
Yeah.
Specifically because you don't have anything that actually wants to be anywhere near anybody. But
I agree.
Yeah. Pretty much what Adeptus said.
Yeah, it's really good that you called out about the gun hauler, because having the collapsible compartments gives you that flexibility that you can put the chemist in there if you want to.
And a close combat engine master as well, so you can actually like Zilfin the gun hauler, then have it move it again, even 18 with a head full, and then you can charge. You can do like mortal wounds with the bombs. And the engine master can do some damage as well. So yeah, the setup I used to run before the point drops. I would have an engine master with both Thinkerer and the staff. So it was 3 shots, 2s and 2s, minus 1d3. So adding to that with the chemist shooting as well, and the close combat, you have that little boat that can do quite a few wounds, and is really sneaky compared to the ironclad and stuff like that.
Yeah. The other thing about the gun hauler is being on a smaller base, you get a little bit more choice where you can fly high to as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, the battle ram pick that Carl picked up on, and like saying you don't have anything to charge with, you have engine riggers, swords and pistols, which obviously are a melee threat. This particular loadout is, if you really want to make full use of that hero phase move, then this is it, because you're using the hero phase move, then gives you the charge of the battle ram and the engine riggers. Not necessarily that's the best thing to do, because you're basically throwing everything. Basically throwing everything at your opponent straight away, which might not always be great. But I wanted to put it in to highlight the fact that the hero phase move also means that you can then move afterwards and then get a really easy charge. One thing to note about that battle ram is it will work first turn, might not work turn 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you're flying high, because then you'll be 9 inches away.
And the thing is, you don't want to, stick your ironclad into melee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fluffy rolls, rolling bad for the mortal wounds, and then you can take damage. And if you went first, then you can also take again some damage. So you're I'm not a big fan of having in this list, in the Zon list, maybe not. It's another discussion, but in this list, you don't need that ground. You don't need it.
No. You kind of have to go one of two ways. You either charge in everything to an extent, or you just hang back and use the last word. Because one of the things is, if you just you don't charge in the ship and you charge in your engine riggers, then your engine riggers then aren't near your ironclad to do healing. The same with the engine master. Obviously, you fly your gun haulers, so those other 6 engine riggers could be near your ironclad if you fly them all near each other. But they probably want to go somewhere else to pick up some scoring points because they got the long range guns to help.
My general rule of thumb is when I have this, KO cannot do mortal wounds from range. They don't have that ability besides Warp Lightning Vortex. So usually I take Battle Ram in lists where I don't have Vortex because the role that I need to fill is mortal wounds. Last word does more damage. It's like if you don't need that role filled, the last word, if you're using it correctly, should pull ahead. So yeah, that's just like a general rule of thumb that I use when I'm list building. You also have you do have 18 riggers, if I counted that right. Yeah. So you could just fortress up, and you didn't kill my ironclad. Let me just heal.
Heal all of its wounds.
Because there's a lot of potential healing there.
Yeah, so this is a fortress. I'm gonna throw down my Warp Lightning Vortex on top of you, and then I'm gonna sit over here and just be like, "Hey, what's up?" It's a 3-drop.
And we're gonna have a blast this evening. We got lots of fun. It's gonna be a nice game, casual game.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to highlight is the Navigator, because that kind of stacks a little bit with the Warp Lightning Vortex. The Warp Lightning Vortex stops them running and flying, and the Navigator takes one of those flying units and says, "Oh, now you're half move." And because the way the Warp Lightning Vortex is worded, the fact that they have their fly switched off doesn't stop the Navigator picking them for being half move, because it only halves the movement in the movement phase.
Should we also talk about some specialized Warp Lightning Vortex tactics?
Such as
stopping Archaon from moving at all. You put that Warp Lightning Vortex around Archaon's base, stop him flying, he can't move over the base, he's stuck.
What size base is he on?
Can't one of his heads just eat endless spells?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Okay,
that was a nice
new plan.
What size is his base?
It's the really big one. It's bigger than Morothy's.
I don't believe it's 7 inches in diameter, though. That would be kind of
because I tried it. I tried doing the same thing. Well, the very second game I had with KO after the new book on a cabbage. Whatchamacallit? What's the proper word for a cabbage?
The Mud Crusher.
The Maw Crusher. I tried doing it on a Maw Crusher. I was like, I'm sure if I put this in the right place, I can stop you from actually moving out. And the base is just slightly small enough that it can.
I was sure some of the Skaven players figured out ways to actually trap models. I just forget which ones they were.
Maybe you're thinking of Shackles, because Shackles you can just completely trap models.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I could put the Vortex and then the Shackles in between the Vortexes.
Yeah, that would be mean.
and then use the Navigator. Oh, actually, here's a question: if the Warp Lightning Vortex stops something from flying, does the Navigator still work on it?
Yes, I just explained that.
Yeah, he said that. Oh, man, you paying attention? God, oh, gee.
Welcome to 2 minutes to go, Crown.
Is your first phone?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So just to clarify, it's the Navigator ability happens in the hero phase, and then the Warp Lightning Vortex thing that stops a movement kicks in the movement phase. So stuff that's inside the Warp Lightning Vortex can't fly when it moves, but it can fly when it piles in and when it charges, which is just weird, but that's the way it works. One thing I want to say about the Warp Lightning Vortex, just in general, before we look at the next list, because it's an important thing to note about just how the spell works and how it is beneficial for KO, I think, is KO can put everything in one place. We're like one of the few armies that can just put our whole army in one place if we want to. And that's really good for us if we're not facing up against the entire of your opponent's army, because generally, actually, we have damage output, but it's not as massive as some other armies. And if you were just going to go up against a castle in one place, you probably wouldn't actually do enough damage to kill it, and then they would just come back and hit you next turn. So the Warp Lightning Vortex incentivizes your opponent to spread out, because they're like, oh, I don't want all my stuff in one place, because then it'll all get hit by the Warp Lightning Vortex, which then is good for KO, because then they spread out, and then we can hit one flank.
Yeah, and what I like to do usually, with the Zilfin list that I haven't played in a few months now, but I like to drop the Vortex on one flank and deploy everything on the other flank. So now I can, do some damage far away. I can pick my targets on one flank and still affect like his ability to bring in reinforcements, like cut off his run, cut off his movement. I like to do that, and I think it can be a pretty viable tactic, to be honest. So because even if you go first, if you can somehow slow the reinforcements, you can mitigate the impact of a potential double turn from your opponent. Meaning that even if he doubles you up, well, he's not going to have 2 combat phases on you, because the reinforcement won't be able to, having 2 full turns of combat against you. So that can be like a viable tactics if you ever go first. If you don't have enough drops, or if you ever choose to go first because you want to kill something really fast, putting the Vortex in one spot, that's why I prefer the gun hauler to transport a chemist, because it's not that big of a commitment. If you bring the gun hauler instead of the ironclad. So that's just some tactics that I use that can be pretty effective.
Yeah, because we mentioned that you can hero phase fly high, and then you can move in the movement phase afterwards. But of course, in your movement phase afterwards, you can fly high.
Yeah.
So you can just fly high, put the Warp Lightning Vortex down, and then fly high somewhere else.
Or just use the extra move, a headful move from the gun hauler, and have an 18-inch move, which is pretty decent.
Yeah. One other thing you can do is you can literally, if you play a high drop list and they make you go first and you don't really want to commit to anything, you can literally fly high from your corner. You deploy everything in a corner, a big castle, fly high, put the Warp Lightning Vortex on, and then fly high back into your corner.
Sure.
And you're like, yep, well, I took my first turn. That's all I've done is put a Warp Lightning Vortex on you.
Sure.
Shoot your 36-inch cannon.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next list, because we've got quite a few to go through. So this is, but actually, it's your list, Adeptus.
Yeah, exactly.
Does a similar list, and you alluded to it a minute ago that you prefer the Escort wing. So this is basically an Escort wing version of the other list.
It looks a lot like the first one. It looks like the first one, and is in the ways it works. This one. Basically, I use the Escort wing, as you mentioned, because I think the rule is better, having those extra rolling ones. We've had that discussion before on the show between Sky Command and Escort wing. And I made a decision to include Escort wing because I like Thunderers. So to me, Frigates and Thunderers equals the Ironclad. So they have about the same firepower, but they get more wound. I can split them up, and so that's why I'm going with this choice. I do have 2 units of engine riggers. Why the grapnel launcher? Because this will be the group that I'm going to use with my gun hauler with the collapsible compartment, and I can charge a flank of a unit and just lock that unit up. With the extra Zilfin move, I can put him in position, have him move again, and then charge a few models of a spread out unit and prevent it from retreating, so I can lock that unit up for a few turns, hopefully. The Skyhook for the other group of riggers that will accompany probably the frigate, so they can get their +1 to charge. And I do have 2 units of wardens just to lower drops, and so these guys are just objective grabbers, objective holders. You can affect the game at long range. The only thing that I really question are the Arcanauts. So a block of 20, because I feel like 20 is perfect to screen from probably every army, everything that I can face. But I would probably like to drop like 10 of them and put in the engine master on the gun hauler, in the gun hauler.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, I know frigate is not seen as as good of a choice as the ironclad, but I just like the combo of frigate plus thunderers. It's more reliable. It's harder to kill. So yeah, that's about it.
6 drop. Am I counting that right?
It's a 6 droplets, exactly.
So I would actually argue the frigate is typically more competitive than the ironclad. The ironclad having a fatal flaw in that it's one model.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you.
I think most people, when they play the army a lot, will find that the Thunder frigate is generally offering more utility. That's not why you take the ironclad. The ironclad is a completely different play style. Like it's not. I do agree that the firepower is actually comparable, but the way to use them is completely different.
I agree.
The ironclad is a fortress. The Thunder frigate is a mobile shooting
Gunboat.
wagon, right? So like, yeah, they have completely different roles. And so the way that you play this list is going to be very different from the one I'm going to show you next, probably. I like it.
Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
No, that was it. I was just gonna say I agree with everything that you said. Sometimes I like having you're ready at 6 drops, dropping the arcs from one group of 20 to 2 groups of 10 would offer a bit more. You can split up. There's not really a benefit to having the thing about having it one group of 20 is that you can reroll saves for the whole group. But having 2 groups of 10 means that if something's hitting one group, then the other group can still live if you spaced them out correctly.
Yeah.
And
so I don't think you need
capture 2 objectives on 2 sides of the board.
Yeah. Before the point drops, it used to be 2 squads of 10. And the engine master on Dirigible Suit was a foot engine master. So with the extra points saved, I put in the Dirigible Suit. And since I didn't need as many battle lines now because I got plenty with all the Sky Riggers, I put it in a bunch in one group of 20. But you might be right. I mean, from 6 to 7, for what it's worth, most competitive lists will be either in the 1 to 3 range or way above 7. It's no battalion or a battalion that will be very low drop.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah. And then one funny thing I realized is like when I was playing one of my last games against Seraphon, I was more bothered by the fact that there was 2 groups of 10 skinks than I was by the one group of 40. Because the 2 groups of 10 skinks was standing in places I didn't want them to. And they were something I had to deal with. And I couldn't overkill them, right? Like I was shooting. So, the damage carrying over in this game is insane. So having big blocks of units is not good because of applying said damage is not always consistent. But when you have something like all the meta lists right now kind of tend to overkill. So having MSUs is actually kind of really good.
You know what? I totally agree. It makes perfect sense. And that's my play style. I like being an MSU guy. Every list that I ran basically are MSU. And that 20. You know what? I actually didn't play this list as it is. because I haven't played my Zilfin list since the point drops, because I went on the zombie bandwagon, then the pandemic started. But it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense of 2 squads of 10. I agree.
We mentioned about the frigate, and one of the common complaints about the frigate is that you can't take Thunderers and a hero, or you can't take a unit of Arcanauts and a hero. When it's in Escort Wing, it's a completely different kettle of fish, because you're getting that reroll ones anyway from the battalion ability. So you've got less reason to even need a hero in there, potentially. And then in Zilfin, and potentially other Skyports, if you've got a battalion, if you've got a gun hauler, then you can have collapsible compartments to move heroes around as well.
Yeah.
So it becomes a lot less of an issue in Escort Wing and Zilfin.
And it's a big debate, Escort Wing versus Iron Sky Command. I know that Iron Sky Command is, it's good for its own reasons. Like, it's a lower drop army. It gives you a cool rule, but at the same time, I mean, having rerolling ones against a target of your choice each and every single turn that can change, that's a lot of free CPs you end up not spending. It's a lot of free CPs. So I really love the Escort Wing just for that, and I love Thunderers. So that's why I'm using this, and I'm using every unit available to KO except the Ironclad. So
and Brock.
Yeah, I like.
And Brock,
and
Brock.
Navigator's not here.
And well, Brock is not a unit. Brock is, I don't know, a disappointment. So.
An ointment, is that what you said? You apply it to the face sometimes when you want to feel better.
One of the things we mentioned earlier was that problem with if your opponent outdrops you and then they have to make that choice, like, do they get Warp Lightning Vortex put on them or not? So that is why in Zilfin you can go, if you want to, you can go high drop, because the hero phase fly high and having Warp Lightning Vortex, or potentially another Ender spell if it gets nerfed, goes up loads of points. That is,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it puts a threat that your opponent has to think about.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be low drop.
No, and I've said it before. I mean, I think that with the new book and the way flying high works, I think drops are that important to KO. Because you can castle up and you can, mitigate pretty much every alpha strike there is, except under KO, of course. But, against pretty much every army, you can withstand an alpha strike and not lose that much, because you're so far from the enemy. So I don't think being low drop at all costs is a priority.
Before we move on, one other thing about this list is you have on your Entry Master of Dirigible Pursuit the Great Tinkerer command trait. Do you want to explain why you choose that over Grudgebearer?
Well, actually, because I'm using the staff on the Eye of Grungni. So because I feel like 6 attacks, just like Kyle said, 6 attacks, 2s, 3s, -1, and 1 damage. It's pretty cool, and it's an item that will work. The Great Thinker is command trait that will work every single turn, instead of just that one hero that I'm gonna kill. Because if I want a hero dead, usually with the Escort Wing, I can make it happen rather easily. Or with the Vortex, I can usually I use a Vortex to kill or to severely damage support heroes. It's not the effect on big units. I want to snipe those heroes, remove a few wounds, so they're easier to kill after that. So to me, having Great Thinkerer, so that's 2 extra shots for his Eye of Grungni. Since he's going to accompany the gun hauler with the Zilfin move, he gets to move again. And after that, so it's 3 shots, 2s and 2s, -1 rend, D3 damage. So to me, that's all around, instead of Grudgebearer that works only once, basically.
Yeah.
That was my thought.
Okay.
Great Tinker is the extra range, right?
No, it's the extra shots.
Yeah.
On the Eye of Grungni. So he gets 3 shots in 1.
Then there's an artifact that gives it extra range. You can combine them, but
So
You
that's
don't
why,
need it. You don't
why
need it with Zilfin.
that's why it's easy to get them mixed up, because you often see them used together.
Because I hit on 3s and 2s.
Yeah, he's just really good at staring.
Yep.
Oh, so does it hit on 3s or 2s? I forgot.
Oh, his
Threes.
threes. Yeah,
And he wounds
So
them
used to
too.
hit.
Yeah, so I mean,
twos and twos.
you have the CP because you have escort wing. You could just volley fire on himself.
Yeah.
So like you can kill whatever you wanted to anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't need Grudge Bearer that much, because with Grudge Bearer, again, it works on one model for the whole game, while this artifact and this trait works every single turn.
Yeah,
it's fair.
So.
I usually roll terribly. I don't like D3 weapons. So that's me personally. But
Yeah.
no, like I get that is perfectly reasonable, and I can get behind that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next list, which is basically how like an example of how to play Zilfin with the Warp Lightning Vortex and Attack Squadron Battalion. I think this particular example that I chose is actually Phil McGuinness's list that he took to Northern Invasion, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's a chemist with the Collector command trait, Staff of Ocular Optimization, then another chemist with Spell in the Bottle, a Navigator with the Flare Pistol, 3 units of 10 Arkanauts, 3 frigates, one of which has got Malefic Sky Mines, a gun hauler with the Spar Torpedo, an Ironclad with the Battle Ram, Attack Squadron, and Warp Lightning Vortex. So he's got 5 ships.
That's some boats, yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why I chose this list, because it's like, well, it's one that's got lots of boats, which is fun. Cool.
Yep, I don't think we're going to see more than 5 boats today.
Sure would be ashamed to see more than 5 boats today.
Yeah. So one of the key things here is having Collector as the command trait for the chemist. Means he gets an extra artifact of power. So he can have Spell in the Bottle and the Flare Pistol on the same list. The Flare Pistol, if you don't know what that does, it basically you pick one enemy. The first time you score a hit with it, then all of your other units for that phase can re-roll all of their hit rolls against that target. So if all of his units in this list really want to take out one particular big target, then they have the facility to do so.
You see Nagash, you kill Nagash.
Yeah. Or Archeon or something like that.
Techless, bloody techless.
Archeon's not killable.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of this list?
This is a play more.
Yeah.
You gotta Iron Sky attack is always going to be you're playing the game, not you're deleting your opponent. He's got Flare Pistol, which makes it look like he can do a lot of damage. 3 frigates is nothing to like sneeze at. Like that is a fair amount of damage. But it's not doesn't put out as much as Thunders do if you really lean into it. Iron Sky to the Arcanaut Company aren't gonna be doing a lot except for like winning you the game. So this is the player was good at the game, and I think he won it with it because he understood KO's most important thing is movement, and he won with a movement list. That's what this is.
That would be a fun list to play against. It's not its biggest weakness would be seizing and holding objectives, obviously, because you're only gonna hold a lot of things with only 3 squads of Arcanauts. I would probably put a drill cannon on the gun hauler just to give you more. You only have 4 sky cannons, so the extra mortal wound output could be interesting. But yeah, this is fun. Having 5 ships on the table is pretty cool. This would be like a nice casual game, like a nice compromise between, well, I'm going to play Zilfin with the Vortex, but then I'm going to play Iron Sky Attack. So it's a nice compromise to me. This would be a list that would be fun probably to play against.
Yep.
I think the only change I would make is because it's going for that playing the game aspect more, I'd say get rid of the flare pistol, give him the stuff of ocular optimization, and give the second chemist the vent plates to save you from other KO players.
I'd actually take the Voidstorm Orb. Dead probably. The thing though, like having flare pistol when you have that many frigates, you can do a crap ton of damage to carbines. The thing I want to argue about what makes Iron Sky attack so amazing is a core rule in AOS is the fact that you can't consolidate after you kill things in this game. So the frigate is what's actually holding the objective. The Arcanaut Company stays 6 inches off. They form a ring around, and when something comes in and charges and wants to fight, you just make sure you remove models. Like you don't keep cohesion. I want to stress that point. When you're removing Arcanaut Company, don't keep cohesion from your dudes. You keep them there and remove models so that when your opponent eventually piles in, they can't pile in onto the objective. So you can actually, with this kind of list, stop the opponent from scoring completely for a turn or 2 or 3, depending on how long those Arcanaut Company last, because they're just standing there. You don't even have to kill anything. So it's really weird playing Iron Sky Attack because you are playing movement. You're playing chess. You're not killing your opponent.
Yeah. The one thing about this list and the flare pistol is you can have basically one turn where all of those Arcanauts unload all their pistols and get reroll hits against something, which is going to be 63 shots rerolling, potentially hitting on freeze if they've just got out of the ships onto an objective. So they could really take an opponent by surprise, because
the only issue is that they split. It's 3 different units, so you can remove models from whatever it is you're shooting at.
Yeah,
I was thinking that, like, oh yeah, if you had a line of skinks, like 40 skinks that were just covering the entire board, all 30 Arcanaut Company would be in range to do that. However, a smart player will remove off the end and not fall into that trap.
Yeah. If there's something just sitting on an objective, holding it, and you want to just put all your Arcanauts on the objective, and then try and kill off that big unit that's holding it, then that could be really useful, I think.
Yeah, it's a non-trivial amount of saves that they probably have to make. It's true.
Yeah, it's death by 1,000 cuts essentially, because there's no rend, and but if you make someone roll enough dice, they will fail some eventually.
At some point.
Your opponent might be like, "Oh my god!" like picking up all this big pile of dice, and it will take you a long time to roll them as well. Yeah. Shall we move on to the next list, or lists rather? Because the next slide is an interesting one. It's a complicated one. So we talked about how you can use the hero phase fly high to basically deploy the warp lightning vortex or another endless spell. Well, another thing you can do with it is you can take an ironclad and you can put 20 thunderers in it, and then you get them out in the hero phase. Not in the hero phase, in the movement phase after it's flown out in the hero phase. And because when they're out of the ship, the special weapons that they have access to can get their buff because they can't have the buff when they're in the ship.
They're all hitting on 3s. They start just you've got deck sweepers acting like 4-shot carbines. Cannons are 3s and 2s. And the mortar exists.
The mortar is there to give the other guns the buffs. So this, is a thing you can do where basically you have to take an ironclad, you have to take the buoyancy 8 to fit the 20 thunderers in the list and be able to fly high. And then you can then just structure the rest of the list around it, because that's half your list, and then you've got 1,040 points to play with. So
this slide was the compromise to stop this show from being 6 hours.
Yes, because I couldn't decide which of these lists. I couldn't decide which of these lists to put in. So I was like, right, I'll put all of them in, but on one slide. So therefore, I cheated. So we'll talk about your version first, Colin, because I don't know. Is it fair to say you invented this, or I'd imagine other people must have come up with it without about you doing it as well? But you were the first person to do it as a tournament, I think, as I know of. But
yeah, I think I first used it SAGT. That was in April, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I used it. I was one of the first, I guess, but I don't. I'm sure someone else used it before me.
Did you use it at CanCon in February?
No, that was the Mornar list that I used in CanCon. The Escort wing Mornar. Urbaz, yeah, Urbaz.
But you did have 20 Thunderers in that.
I also had the 20 Thunders and Ironclad. Yeah, I just used that in Urbaz and then thought, hang on, I could probably use this more efficiently in Zilfin.
Yeah.
And turns out, yes, you can.
Yeah. So one thing is, if you want to know more about how the list we just looked at before this, Phil's list, there is a video that we did where we had Phil on the show, so you can hear him talk about it. And the tournament Kron's talking about where you won.
That was Cinderfall GT.
Yeah.
Where I won, that was Cinderfall. That's more recent.
Yeah.
That was only a couple months ago.
Yeah. Because I don't think we can spend a huge amount of time talking about all three of these lists, because the whole point of putting all three in was so we can compare and contrast them. But you can go back and watch the show where we talk all about Kron's tournament result.
Yeah, we can just talk about general tactics. They all kind of function the same. You've got Ironclad jumps forward, deploys 20 Thunderers, deploys Lightning Vortex, shoots their army off table.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've got your Arcanauts and your Riggers and or Sky Wardens and or Gun Haulers moving around, taking objectives and picking off small units where they can.
Yeah. So in your version, Con, you have Chemist General Collector. So you have 3 units of 10 Arcanauts. So you make good use of the 6-inch run, because you can run your Arcanauts forwards in your first turn to claim objectives. You have Frostwrite Bomblets on your Endramaster Retrieval Suit.
That's just a personal choice. Yeah. Although I'm thinking of actually change. So I've got a tournament coming up in March, and if the FAQ doesn't change too much, which it will, but if it doesn't change too much, I was actually thinking of getting rid of those Frostwrite Bomblets, giving him the Staff of Ocular Optimization, and putting the vent plates. I'm starting to think the vent plates are a necessity with the amount of Kharadron Overlords we're starting to see.
Fair.
This one hit hurts a lot for this army.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
I think it'll.
Yeah. And we just
so you've got one squad of 10 Arcanauts will screen your boat, your boat in turn 1, and the other 2 are just going to sit on where the objectives are going to be.
The thing that's obnoxious about this is that we just looked at 3 lists that part of the reason they're really good is because they can put the Warp Lightning Vortex in, and then when you take like a version of Zilfin where you have 20 Thunderers, you can still fit the Warp Lightning Vortex in as well. Like, it's not like a choice between one or the other. It doesn't have to be.
No, I want to take 20 Thunderers and the Ironclad and the Warp Lightning Vortex. Just the 2 best shooting units in our army, and then the best endless spell in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Screw you, Skaven.
So there's a question in the chat. I'll put it on screen because I can do that. That's a thing. So why 4 Frigators in a 20-man Thunderers unit? And the reason for that is because I copy and pasted that off Kyle's version of the list. Because Krohn, you only use 1 Fumigator, don't you?
Yeah, I just use 1.
Yeah, I have a very specific plan for how I use this. I was thinking about maybe making a diagram for this, because there's a specific strategy that I use every time for this army. So, looking at it, you can put 20 Thunders, the Ironclad, 2 of those Sky Wardens and the Engine Master Dirigible and the Aether Chemist, they can all take that fly high hero move. So that's like 1,500 points of your list, like right, like that's the entire list that goes with the hero phase move. And you, like I said before, you can use this anytime you want, but the reason I have this as a 3-drop is because I like having pace control. If I see an opening, I want to be able to like tap it in the first turn. So what I like to do is I will move the Ironclad forward with everyone on board. The hitchers should say within 6, the same way getting out, right? Hitchers, you land within 6.
I think that hitches is wholly within 6.
Is it
Only within 6? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Only.
Well, either way, you drop the Ironclad lengthwise in front of the army, so you get the maximum amount of horizontal distance, and then 6 inches off of that is where you put those engine riggers with the grapnels. You throw down the warp lightning vortex in front, and then what you do after that is you basically get all the thunderers outside, and they move forward. So you line 9 inches away from the front line, where presumably they have a screen. You move the thunderers outside of the boat about, so 9 inches minus 4 is 5.
You're trying to keep out of
you
melee
need
range.
to be within 9 for fumigators, right? But you need enough space to actually move the Ironclad forward. So you don't move the thunders all the length forward they can get. They actually just get out of the boat about like 1 or 2 inches forward. Then you move the Ironclad in front of them with the last word, so they're standing in front. The 2 groups of engine riggers go off to the side and go as far as they can to the edges of the screen. And you don't touch the screen, like you don't shoot the screen at all. Those with the grapnels, what they'll do is they'll charge into the screen and then keep them locked into combat from 2 different points, so you can't pile in any direction. And you don't kill anything either because you keep the other engine riggers out. And so what you do is you keep the screen locked in place while the enemy basically gets microwaved.
Like that.
Yeah, so you keep them there, and then the 2 gun haulers land and just take objectives. Now that's everything I do in basically the movement phase. So talking about the shooting phase, I have 20 thunderers. The trade-off I usually run into in running a thunder, running 20 thunders is the fact that you usually can't use the Aether Gold to re-roll the wounds because you're not going to be in a great position not to get, double turned.
You pretty much always want to keep that for the reroll saves, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you can hop out. The Ironclad is the last word. It's standing in front. Literally nothing can get to you except from the sides. And they have to run around your Ironclad to get there. And so you just shoot the thing behind the screen, and nothing can fly, so no one's flying out of that microwave. So you just shoot whatever you want with the reroll wounds, and then you have Escort wings, so you're rerolling ones anyway against whatever you wanted to shoot. So you pick off the main enemy target. Their screen is still locked in place, so they can't move. And then the Ironclad shoots. And then your chemist is actually in range, so he can shoot too. And then the reason why I'm taking Grudge Bear is because I'm not ever going to shoot. I typically don't shoot hero units with all these thunderers. I'm going for removing. He's got a block of 40 something. So you'll use the Engine Master by himself, hopefully, to pick off the hero that you need to, and you can do the same because you have 2 CP. You can volley fire off the Ironclad and then shoot the big shot at a hero that has 5 wounds. Just take it off the board. Shoot the Engine Master Dirigible shoot another hero off the board. Now you remove their main unit with the 20 shots, the Thunderers, who are re-rolling everything, and you remove that. So now they have they probably lost around 500 to 700 points of their army for everything you just shot. They're stuck in place, and now they have a turn where they can't retreat because you grappled them. They can't move forward because their screen is in the way. It's just so abusive. This is like when I put this together, this is the when the GHP dropped, I immediately hit up all my friends. It's like, this is horrible. The fact that he's got points reductions means that you could field this army, and this is broken. Like I'm right at the 2,000 point because it's if they had done anything differently, I could not do this. This is just so.
Well, this will be invalid in about 2 weeks. So
yeah. I played this a few times just to kind of like see, like how Max was talking about Calip in that last. Sorry, not Max. It was Matthew or Matt. Yeah, he was talking about. I played this against Calip, and like I completely tabled him on the first turn. We're like, yeah, we're never doing that, doing this again. It is really brutal. It's something. The other thing is that it's one of those plans that it's just super consistent. Like your opponent has to screen. Like if they're not going to screen, then you don't even have to do this. You can just shoot them off, right? And if they don't screen, then you can do this at any point in the game. So it's really ridiculous, and I'm ready for it to not be a thing. But yeah, that one's mine.
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting about that is because I've thought about doing like the 2 small units with grapnels in the past, and I nearly mentioned it earlier when we looked at your list, Alex, because you had 1 unit of 6 with a grapnel, and I said, oh, if it was me, I'd maybe take 2 units of 3, but you probably got your reasons there, and you've got 2 units of 3 Sky Wardens anyway for your MSU capabilities. But when I was thinking about doing this sort of thing where you basically put a warp line in Vortex, tag both ends of the screen, I was thinking, and then I'll put a string of Arkanauts. But yeah, the 20 Thunderers that are -1 to hit is even better. So with the 4 Fumigators, do you try and get them so they are in range of the unit?
They should always be. I mean, okay. So this is actually counterintuitive to what I just said. 9 inches off of the front screen means you're not always actually going to have the a liberty not to shoot that front screen. If it's 40 Marauders, you're going to want to shoot them, right? If it's 40 Skinks, don't shoot them. That's what the Fumigators are for. Because it depends on what it is you're fighting. Some screens are actually terrifying, so others are not. So the Fumigators are just better rifles. They have 3 shots. They do more damage than any Thunder. This is true. They have better hit and wound. Well, they don't have better. They have more attacks, so they're better than rifles. They have more wound, so they're better than rifles. The only downside is usually not in range. Zilfin gets around that. That's why. Also, because I want to have, like I said, you're stringing this out around the outside of the ironclad. So you have the base of the ironclad, and then you have the fumigators on the outside of that ring you have around it. You're not covering the 3 inches that you need if you only had 2 or 1 or 2. Sometimes I might want to have one behind if I'm against somebody like ponies who might, for some reason, be able to get around me, a full surround. I just like having the coverage, and I'm usually in range to shoot the shots.
Yeah, if you're against an army that can teleport behind you, then you can cover the whole unit with the -1 to hit.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like it would be a really fun game for your opponent.
I mean, sometimes I get timed out when I'm playing competitive because the other lists I play, because they play to the 5th turn. Sometimes I just want to end the game in the first 20 minutes,
Sometimes you just want to finish the game, go sit at the pub for 2 hours.
Yeah.
My idea of a good tournament.
Yeah.
Licensed venues should be a requirement at every event.
Yeah.
But I just want to again stress the fact that you can hitch along with means that those Sky Wardens are getting the 6 inches off of the ironclad, which is already a 4-inch. No, it's 6-inch length. So you've got 12 inches away from each other, and then they can move 12 inches. So that's like a 24, 20 times 2. I don't know, but you can cover the board when it comes to like the amount of distance you can travel with these grapnel hooks, and then make a 3-inch charge.
Yeah.
So that is the pincer move that I want to stress that I haven't really seen in other lists. Krohn has the 2 grapnel hooks, but I don't know if you're going in for pincer moves there.
Not really. They're just they're just
good
damage.
to have. Yeah, I use them offensively. And if you can just nullify your opponent's first 2 turns,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. The thing is, you can take grapnels and you can just have them there to just have the option of using them, which is what Krohn is doing. But yours is more like, I've got grapnels and I'm using them for this specific purpose. So let's talk about Max's version of this. So obviously he has 20 Thunders, the Ironclad, and then he has an Engine Master with dirigible suit, who's the General with Grudge Bearer and the Staff of Optimization, a Navigator with the Flare Pistol, a Chemist, no spell in the bottle, 10 Arcanauts, 3 units of 3 Engine Riggers with drill cannons and volley guns, a Gun Hauler with the Spar Torpedo, and the Iron Sky Command. So Max doesn't like using with the Warp Lightning Vortex, and in 2 weeks' time, he might be better prepared for the way KO plays. Maybe, who knows? The one thing about his list is both of yours are 2,000 points. This is 1970, so potentially he's got a good chance to get a triumph, and he has the flare pistol. So in his first turn, potentially he could have those 20 Thunderers re-rolling all failed hits from the flare pistol and re-rolling all failed wounds from a triumph. Or if he gets to save triumph using their gold to re-roll all failed wounds, and then he can use the triumph to re-roll saves later. So his version leans more into trying to delete something scary.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to log off. So little family emergency. So have a nice rest of show, and catch you guys later. All right.
No worries. Yeah, we shouldn't be too long.
All right.
Yeah, almost.
Bye, guys.
Great seeing you again.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Cheers. So yeah, what do you think of Max's version?
Flare pistol's great with 20 Thunders, just because you can. Well, actually, I don't know. You already have. You're only missing on 2s. It can happen. I roll terrible, so I can get that. I can get behind that.
Do we know? Has he said why he doesn't like the Warp Lightning Vortex?
Principle.
Because it really kills those five wound models.
Well, I can't really remember now off the top of my head. It's a shame that Max was busy today. This is the list that he took to Alliance GT, so he does explain it on that video. Maybe I should have gone back and watched it to be better prepped. Who knows?
That's all right. Our audience can go back and watch that video again.
Yeah, this is the common theme of all of our shows now. Just watch our previous shows. But I think it was partially the problem that he had that problem that you mentioned before, Con, about moving into your own Warp Lightning Vortex, it being in the way of where you potentially want to go in future if your opponent deploys on their objectives, and then you want to take their objectives, but you have to go into your own Warp Lightning Vortex. So
I did want to actually. That's a good point. I should bring that up real quick. The Ironclad and sometimes even the Thunders are probably going to be in the Warp Lightning Vortex in my plan. The thing is, though, taking actually, you're only getting zapped on a 5. Hopefully.
You say that. Do you know how many times I've got? Hey, it's fine. I've got 18 wounds. It's fine. I'm just going to deploy it. I'm just going to move it forward. If it gets hit in a 4+, it takes D3 mortal wounds. Whatever. 6, 5. Oh no.
Yeah, it's can happen.
5 wounds. Happen. We can survive. Next turn. 6, 5.
So one of the key things about the Warp Lightning Vortex is the damage is actually only on a roll, which we don't talk about much. We just talk about it as like, yeah, it takes away flying, it takes away run, and it does a load of damage. It doesn't always do the damage, but the fact that it takes away the flying and the running is still really good. The damage it does, like that roll is modified by how many of the free models you're close to. So when you do deploy it, it's really important to then try and make sure that wherever you want to go, you're not going to be in range of 3 of them or 2 of them. If you can make sure that you're only in range of 1 of them, you're really limiting how much damage it might do back to you. So
there are ways around it.
Yeah, and it comes down in so you're missing the first shock too. It happens in the hero phase and then the movement phase. So typically, the way I see it, it's a trade-off. Sure, I'll take some damage, but you're going to take a lot more probably. And even if you don't, I don't use it for the damage. I use it for the run shut off. But one thing before we move on from this, the reason why this sort of army I don't see going 5-0 in GTs is because Be'lakor exists. Just by nature of existing, he nullifies this list. So it's going to be luck based. You can't. There's no workaround. There's no.
Hope you got your 5+ dice. Your dice that's just the 5+.
Yeah, there's no way to mitigate it. It's just something that, like, okay, if this happens, Be'lakor is on the field. Hope that your opponent does something wrong, and to make sure you're standing in the right place, so that you make the best of all the things you do in the movement phase. Because you're not going to be killing anything. If Be'lakor says your 20 thunders can't shoot, then they're not going to shoot.
Yeah.
And they might not shoot for 2 turns if you're trying to double.
I mean, you could play a version of this list where you have 2 units of 10, and that mitigates that risk a little bit.
The one list I lost at Cinderfall GT was against a Slaanesh Be'lakor list.
I was going to bring that up and say, because I couldn't remember if you lost or not.
Yeah,
no,
I lost to the guy on the top table. Still won the tournament though.
Yeah.
Don't ask how that happened.
Maths happen. One thing I just realised, Carl, you mentioned the last word. I think when you said about moving your ironclad in front of the Thunderers, but you would have to have the buoyancy aid.
Oh, sorry, you're right. I didn't have. Yeah. Okay. Last time I played this list was actually before the GHB, where I was running last word because I'd only used 15 Thunders. Because I would have the chemist inside of in the gun hauler and then move that up, and let's see. No, I would use buoyancy. So no last word. No last word.
Yeah.
So this is what I was doing. However, you could. Yeah, it's a shame. No last word, but it's not needed. The point is to have a 3-up save.
Yeah.
Every rollable 3-up
in
save.
front of your other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. I'm getting my lists mixed up. This is the only list I take buoyancy aid because I hate it on principle because it doesn't do anything. It does something for 1 turn, and I don't like that kind of play.
Yeah. Well, the trouble is there's too many fun toys you can give to the ironclad.
Yeah.
The ironclad's really versatile. Love it.
So let's move on because we talked about lists that use the Warp Lightning Vortex, and we talked about this other key thing that you can do with 20 Thunderers, which you can include the Warp Lightning Vortex as well. So let's look at some slightly different lists. So what is this next one? Okay, so this next list is a list that uses a couple of or 2 of the rules from Zilfin really well. It uses the fact that frigates are battle line, so this list wouldn't be legal elsewhere. You could have it in Barak Nar potentially, and we did show a similar version of this in the Barak Nar show, but this is
the only problem is you're Barak Nar. Yeah.
So there's a problem with most lists, which is when you write them for other Skyports, is you have to ask the question: would it be better in Zilfin? And this is a case where it's better in Zilfin. So this list is a chemist, which is the general with collector and staff of ocular optimization. Then 2 other chemists, one of which has got the span in the bottle. 3 frigates, one with Prudency Shoots, one with Malefic Sky Mines. Then you got 2 units of 15 Thunderers and 1 unit of 10 Thunderers and the Soul Screen Bridge. So basically, what you do is you cast the Soul Screen Bridge in front of your 3 frigates. The frigates cross the bridge, and then I've completely forgotten how it works now.
Do you want me to explain it?
Basically, because the frigates cross the bridge, the units inside the ship aren't crossing the bridge because they're not actually on the table. They don't count as doing what the ship does. So, for instance, it's the same as like if the ship charges, the unit doesn't count as having charged, or the ship runs, the unit doesn't count as having run. So, if the ship crosses the Soul Screen Bridge, then the unit doesn't count as crossing the Soul Screen Bridge, which is easier for other people to say. So then, and it's also not a fly high, and it's also not a move. So then they can get out of the frigate afterwards. So you thought 20 Thunderers was getting into position early was good. Try having 40. And then you've got Fumigators and you've got Chemists for each unit. So they're all -2 to hit as well. And if you don't want to put all 3 across with the bridge, then the unit with the 10 Thunderers can use the hero phase move to go to a different point of the different part of the battle, the map, or later in the game it can do that. So basically, you will deploy your 40 Thunderers and then let rip.
Yeah,
so this gets around Be'lakor.
It gets around Be'lakor. I mean, losing 15 of the Thunderers shooting would still be quite bad.
Less bad. Not having an ironclad makes. I mean, I don't know. Like, what are you gonna stop? The frigates still hurt. Like, it's 3 frigates here, right? Like, that's 50. Not 50. 40 Thunders. 40 Thunders. Stopping 15 of them. It doesn't. Like, this is really abusive. I mean, I wouldn't want to play this because it's really awkward.
If I was Be'lakor, can Be'lakor stop the guy who casts the endless spell? That's what I would stop if I was Be'lakor.
Possibly, I'm not sure.
I don't think anyone's smart enough to think of that.
Yeah.
No one listen to this podcast.
Yes.
We're going to redact that right now. I think you're right.
Because you don't attempt to cast a spell, it just automatically casts. So I don't know. I can't remember if Be'lakor works on spells. I can't remember.
No, he definitely does work on spell casting.
Yeah.
I've had my Nagash beat Be'lakor before. And so Nagash just doesn't do anything.
Oh yeah, you would remember that. One of the
Imagine a 900-point unit that can't do anything.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought Morathi gets past Be'lakor now. That's nice.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Morathi would kind of get past these Thunderers as well because you wouldn't be able to.
There you go. I'm going to shoot you with all my stuff.
No, you shoot everything.
Wounds, time out.
You would have to shoot everything else.
You'd shoot everything else.
If you get the cauldron, and then, I mean, Morathi will still kill something, and she might kill everybody, but she is 1 or 2 models. Right?
Yeah. The surprising thing about this list is it kind of looks like, because you've got 1 bridge, so it kind of looks like it's a bit of a Death Star type thing, even though it's several units, but it's not, because you've got 6 inches around that bridge to deploy the frigates, and then your Thunderers then
6 inches.
Yeah, and then your Thunderers then get out another 6 inches, so you can actually sort of get 12 inches either side of the bridge, or you can go sort of diagonal, so you can actually spread out a fair bit if you want to.
So when does the So teleporting in the bridge happens in the hero phase?
No, you
No,
have
it
a
happens
movement
in
phase.
movement phase, but the ship hasn't
Okay.
moved. It's been set up and it's not a fly high.
The
Is
only
that-
rule specifically
that-
saying that you can't get out of garrison is if the ship has moved or flown high,
Mhm.
which it doesn't do either of those things because it took a bridge. So you
And
get
this
around.
doesn't count as a move.
Yeah, so then basically you're getting around the fact that you can't get out of the ship, and then that makes the Soul Screen Bridge even better because you also get around the 9-inch thing of being away from enemy units because the frigates have to be more than 9 inches away. But then when your Thunderers get out, they don't have to be 9 inches away. They only have to be 3 inches away. So they all get in range. Your Fumigators get in range as well. And you basically put them in 3 little bubbles rather than string them out. So you have one bubble of 15 with chemists inside, another bubble of 15 with chemists inside, and a bubble of 10 with a chemist inside. So all little bubbles that are -2 to hit as well.
Are you taking only
feel
14
like-
thunders for each of these instead of 15?
No, because this is the thing about moving all of the frigates over is all the chemists go in the one with the 10 thunders.
But
Right.
they can't get out in all the locations where you want them to.
Possibly. This is the
feel
thing
like-
to spread out. Then you would have to put that one in the middle, and then your two. You put your frigate that has the 10 thunders in the middle, and then your 2 frigates with the 15 on outside of that. You don't.
The only-
a little bit of play to spread out, but not a huge amount.
The only change I'd make to this is replacing that last chemist with a navigator.
I was thinking
Just because navigators, it gives you the ability to try and dispel a spell, and you can shut down a flying unit. Navigators have a lot of useful abilities. I like having navigators in my list. Plus, he's a 3+ save hero. He's pretty tough. He can sit an objective on one of those places of 3 power and just tank.
It's never fun to get hit by gemnids. So
Yeah.
One thing that would be really nice to have in this list that you can't really fit in would be vent plates. Just to make all of that stuff. Might as well do it shooting as well. But yeah, you can't fit a battalion in, unfortunately. And you need to spend the bottle. But yeah, a navigator. Yeah, I could see that being because the unit of 10 could just sort of sit behind. You could actually play the unit of 10 with rifles and sit them behind the 2 units of 15. So you wouldn't necessarily need them to be -2 to hit, and then you could actually then later in the game use them as a more mobile unit inside the frigate.
that's what I would do personally. And then you can.
I want to
hop
actually
out.
try this.
Yeah. The trouble is
This is very, very close to the way I like to play. The way I like to play games, which is, unsubtle, hammer to face.
You just break the rules. I feel like this is my only complaint about this is that it's not in Mornar.
yeah.
Lorefully, this is the kind of BS that Mornar would be pulling. Like, well, who says that I can't hop out of a bridge and then move forward and shoot you?
The reason it's just better in Zilfin is because the frigate's a battle line.
Oh, it's not even legal. It's not even legal in Mornar. I know that.
You could take it in other Skyports, but then you end up with less Thunderers. So it's the trouble.
Although, speaking of legal, if anyone's Skyport's gonna just they're not really rules; they're more guidelines.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting at. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I wish
exactly,
in
yeah.
Mornar.
One thing that's really important in this is the prudency shoots, because all of your heroes go in the frigate with the 10 Thunderers. So you've got all of your heroes in one boat, and you don't want to lose that spell in the bottle. So you need to have prudency shoots on that ship. But then
because you'd be casting that. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you would potentially make your opponent go first just to avoid being doubled.
One thing I don't like in this list now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't have any screens. No screens.
And it's a big
and deploying in the corner isn't necessarily doesn't guarantee your safety. If you, as I said in the article, Terrorgeist will come over, dead boat.
Yeah.
Or I'd Nethal Deep Strike around you, plus 7 to charge, dead boat, 9 eels.
But this
and then everyone deploys out, has to deploy out.
Mhm.
It doesn't have space. 10 Thunderers, 15 Thunderers dead.
You can't really deploy this list in the corner anyway, because you're not flying high with the ships. You're using the Soul Screen Bridge to get your movement, and that
which has a limited range.
So you really need to deploy in the middle more. You have got
so you're going to be even closer to the enemy. It's
and if they're backboarding,
that's dangerous.
If they're backboarding, you might not even be in range. That's
I don't think they can backboard to stop you getting in range, because you get the first spell goes Holy Within 6. I'm just going to bring this up to make sure I get all these numbers definitely correct. So there you get 6 inch first of all there.
Sure.
The second spell, the second one is Holy Within 12 of the first. So that's 18-inch range already. You're then setting up the frigates Holy Within 6 of the second spell. So that's 24-inch range. And then you're setting up, but they've got to be 9 inches away from the enemy. But obviously you're talking about backboarding, so that's 24 inches. And then you'll get your Thunderers out, basically 7 inches, because they only have to have the back of their base within 6. So their front ones are, so it's basically you get.
So let me rephrase that actually. So Soul Scream Storm Fiends, Bridge Fiends is a really popular, or used to be a really popular thing. And so I played against Bridge Fiends a lot, which was like you put the Soul Scream Bridge, you move 6 Storm Fiends over, and you give them a crap ton of. The takeaway though was the fact that you could screen them out. You could be out of their range by having a dude stand in front. So while you're correct in that the rifles should all be able to hit all the time, a lot of the special weapons are going to run into situations where they just didn't get forward enough to get against something that was backboarding.
Yeah, so if they have a screen and then they backboard behind the screen, the important stuff, that's a problem. But that's the same problem in the 20 Thunderers list as well, because the screen zones you out of shooting the stuff at the back.
It's true.
So, yeah, that's the main problem, is if they deploy a screen on the line and then and then their important stuff right on the back, assuming their important stuff has a small base, which is probably a good reason to have maybe all rifles on the 10 Thunderers.
Yeah, I'd do that. I think it's still a great list, but you are going to run into wonky situations where you're like, holy crap, I don't know how to play this, because it is so different from how the army is normally played.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just feel really vulnerable, like against any Alpha Strike list is just gonna.
Yeah, because you
have so many drops as well, so you can't outdrop them and go, I'm going turn 1 and Alpha Strike in the Alpha Strike list.
Yeah, so the thing is, a lot of people, if they outdrop you, try and make you go first. I don't think they will fully understand the sheer range you will get out of this, because they think,
I agree.
Yeah. The big problem here is that is shooting Alpha Strikes, I think, because they just shoot off your boats or shoot off the Thunderers inside the boat or shoot off the heroes. Anything. They're just like, you can't get, and you'll start with your Thunderers inside the ship, so none of your -2 to hit shenanigans are working if your opponent takes first turn. In melee as well.
You don't have any relic spots open for vent plates either.
No, exactly. That was the thing. It would be nice if you could have vent plates. If you come up against like an Alpha Strike melee list, though, they're going to come to you, so you don't actually need to use the whole Soul Screen Bridge shenanigans. You just deploy and be -2 to hit.
That's true.
No, but I think the Alpha Strike melee list will just roll over you.
Depends on what it is.
It depends on what it is.
Orcs can get to you, but if they're hitting on 6s, it's not amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's Blight
Eels.
Kings, you'll lose.
Mm-hmm.
Eels hitting on 6s don't have a fun time. It's usually the zappy zap, and then the -2 rend off the charge, which can be good. But if you're in combat with them, and they charged, so Thunders are actually a really fantastic screen. Just the only problem is that they're expensive. But in regards to being a unit that's okay with being in combat, they're actually the only ranged unit that would rather be in combat than not.
For that extra shot, yeah.
If they hit you and don't kill you, or don't kill your Thunderous units, then they take the first turn. Then in your turn, you get to shoot back with +1 shot on all of those weapons as well. Is really good.
Yeah, I didn't cover that in the Barak video, but honestly, Thunders, for all the things we always complain about them not having the raw firepower that most other shooting mainline units do, Thunders are ridiculously durable, and they are cool with being in combat, which most shooting things besides maybe lead belchers are not. I'm not cool with that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we've probably done this list now, haven't we? Probably is anything we have to mention about it. So let's look at the last list, which is again
Lee.
This is similar to a list we looked at in Urbaz, in the fact that it's lots of boats, a Lord Ordinator, a Knight Vexilator.
Is that 7 frigates, Lee?
Yeah.
I actually have a suggestion for this one. I would rather have the Admiral be the commander, so that you could actually have. Oh wait, does the Vexilator give reroll ones? No,
that lets you teleport. The Vexilator lets you tele. The Ordinator gives you +1 to hit.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the general trait 5 up, reroll, get a CP back, and you rolled really hotly, you could on my mark every single frigate. You just keep rolling 5 ups and see how many on my marks you can get.
But by having the Chemist as the general, you can have Rune of Mark.
I know,
and then you can get gold for 3 of your frigates. So, and depending on how you deploy them after you teleport them, then they can
thematically. Now hear me out. Thematically, it would be so cool just to have your admiral be popping off. If you're already playing 7 frigates, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. If you're shooting the artillery shots the first turn, you're rolling 1s to hit.
Yeah.
I think that this kind of list can still be done better with Urbaz. Not Urbaz, is it?
It's Urbaz.
Urbaz, yeah. Because in here your frigates put out more firepower than gun haulers, but you're paying points for transport which you're not using.
That's my argument too. Now I do have one thing. I would actually maybe not take the Lord Ordinator, because the most scary thing about this list, the scariest thing about this list is the fact that every single frigate has a 3-up D3 mortal wounds in combat. So what you really should be doing is you should be landing on the first turn at 9 inches, and you should be making those charges.
Mm-hmm.
And you're blowing something up when you have the sheer amount of carbines you're putting off when you're that close. You're blowing something up. And then if you charge into something, you can kill things before the combat phase begins.
So the Lord Ordinator is 140, isn't he?
Yeah, 140.
If you did take him out, you could then put in a gun hauler, and the gun hauler could have the torpedo, if you really wanted to lean into that.
Or actually, no, I have to rephrase that. The way it is great, because you're staying where you are in the first turn. But
you got that range on those cannons.
You got 24 threat. The threat is you got the threat that you can teleport the Lord Ordinator and the Vexilar, but you don't need to do that turn one because you've got 24-inch range. So,
but like, yeah, when you need to move in, so actually the Great Sky Cannon, the actual cannon, not the shrapnel shot, is 30 inches. So if you're really sitting on the backboard and you're just pumping out from that far, and they must have said you get 2s and 2s, and you're just artillery shelling them from the other side of the board. And then when you go in and you commit, depending on the pacing of the game, you can have a huge damage spike if you go into combat.
Yeah, because you've already damaged all you depleted their units anyway, and then you go in and do a load of D3 mortal wounds.
I guess.
Yeah, it's just like it's what makes Chariots scary in Slaanesh is the fact that we have 7 frigates that do mortals. That just it's almost guaranteed. If they don't do any damage back to you, then when they charge you in combat, then you're gonna drop them on again. It's like having a warp lightning vortex almost with the sheer amount of mortal wounds you're putting out.
Yeah. And then when it gets to late game, when things are depleted of objectives, you've got 7 ships that can fly high anywhere, and you can start spreading out to cap objectives.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got no bodies, so you will be relying on killing enemy units. How would you feel against pink horrors with this?
You wouldn't win. There's no way. You would straight up. You'd be like, hey, I'm just gonna play. You get drunk and you play a shooting gallery game. You accept the fact that you'll never win because you don't have the damage, but you play it anyway.
There's an interesting thing you can do there once with lists that have lots of boats. Is they have a surprising amount of board control because they've got big bases, and when you basically spread them out, or you can actually put them in a way so they zone off the objective.
We're going to out-gargant the Gargants.
You can just put all their bases in a little row, making a little circle, so that if you get
a line is better if you're against blue horrors.
But yeah, it depends what where the objective is, and
it depends where you're against. Yeah,
you can make a big long line of 7 boats. I mean, what's the basis like? What, 5 inches long? So that's very fine.
What I hate most about horrors is that you kill them, and as they die, they string out onto an objective during your turn.
That's really annoying.
And then it's like, okay, cool. Well, now you have 2 bases on my. It's like I might as well not have shot you.
Yeah.
You just moved 40 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's all the lists we've got. Final thoughts. Is there anything that you don't think any sort of lists that we think we haven't covered that have potential? That maybe
6 boats.
6 boats.
I think it has potential. It's 2 ironclads, 2 frigates, 2 gun haulers. 3 frigates.
I don't think I know anyone who has 7 frigates.
No.
I think the most frigates I've ever seen is Dan. He had 5.
Yeah, Phil's got 3, I think. So
I've got 3.
I have 4.
You got 4. Dan's got 5. I've never seen this concentration of frigates in my life.
That's how
ever.
Could have friends.
Yeah. So there is I think there's a style of list you can play in Zilfin, which is you really just lean into controlling where your opponent can go. You kind of do the same thing that you do in your 20 Thunderers list, Carl, where you grapnel both ends of their screen, you put the Warp Lightning Vortex on, but then you also go for massive ball control with Arkanauts and stuff, so that you just spread out everywhere. So if they do have to teleport, then they can't get out from behind their screen by teleporting anywhere because there's nowhere for them to go. And then you just cap all the objectives for the first 2 turns where they're trying to get out from behind their screen, and then by the time they do get out, you're basically ahead enough on points that they can't they can't get back unless they can take all the objectives that turn. What do you think of a list in that vein?
I mean, I agree. Yeah, go ahead, Krohn.
Oh, I'm just not sure Kharadron Overlords have the staying power to keep up lists like that. Not defensive enough.
They can surprisingly hold out where they need to, or just die and put you in positions where you didn't want to be. I keep saying that, right? Like if you're standing in the right place with KO, it doesn't matter if you killed or didn't kill something, because your opponent is just not in a place where the unit that went over there to kill the KO thing is going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. The problem with a star, because it's essentially a bit like an alpha. You pin them in their deployment and you try and cap loads of points early on. It doesn't work on things like Star Strike because there aren't objectives to score early on.
Yeah, but they can't score an army if they don't have. So they can't score points if they don't have an army.
No, but that's more of a traditional KO list, isn't it? Does that?
Yeah, no, I get you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
specifically, exactly. That's not. You're right. I hadn't occurred to me. The Iron Sky attack is not going to do well on Star Strike.
Yeah, or they can do if you keep them in the boat until later. But...
Yeah. Actually, I guess you're right. But it's not something I'd want to try. It's not a game I'd want to play. Already taking a difficult army and then making it harder.
So, yeah, any final thoughts? Because we've already talked about the potential nerfs. So, have we covered everything?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Some closing thoughts. We talked about how amazing some of these abilities are, and the fact that there's no trade-offs to doing them. But the army is still ridiculously hard to play. You can't just pick. You can't just. It's not like Petrifex Elite, the old way where you had 3 rerollable saves and you just stood where you just moved forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Orcs where you just go for it. It's not an attack move army. The army itself doesn't do as much damage as you think it should. It doesn't have the staying power you kind of hope it would. It's not even quite as mobile as you kind of wish it was sometimes, because you have 4-inch moving dudes if your boats die, right? So Zilfin is really strong, but a good opponent is still going to beat you. So don't just be like, oh yeah, I'm playing a great army, this is going to be easy. That's my closing thoughts. And then yeah.
Just to add to that, even if your boats don't die, if they lose their ability to fly high and their movement goes down when they're taking wounds as well.
Yeah, for sure. You can find yourself stuck with an ironclad.
Yeah.
On the wrong side of the board.
Yeah. In the corner. Stuck in the corner is not fun when you can't get out if you don't have the healing. But yeah, I mean, some of the lists we talked about, like even just things like the Thunderers trying to be -2 to hit, you've got to deploy them in the right way. You talked about your alpha pin thing where you've got to get your grapnels at both ends of the screen. You've got to get your Thunderers in the perfect place so that boat can move in front of them. And even something that's a little bit more simplistic where you just get your 20 Thunderers out and try and shoot something, you still got to put them in the right place so that they don't get charged and completely destroyed next turn. You've got to
also, you got to measure ranges. It's kind of funny. Shooting from the ironclad, you can shoot anywhere from the ironclad. As soon as you put your Thunders on the board, it's actually like harder. 32 mils. They take up a lot of space.
Yeah,
they do.
Especially when
you've got to be careful with that special weapon placement.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we covered everything. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you guys for joining, and thank you to Adeptus Alex, although he's already left. But yeah, and if you like the show, hit like, if you like the channel, hit subscribe. One other thing that I want
next episode. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Next episode, there isn't going to be a show next week because I'm moving house. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Good luck.
As soon as hopefully they will give me the keys. So yeah, I won't be able to do a show next week. But yeah, after that, I'm not sure because we finished this little series. But
have
we finished this series? What about generic Skyports?
Yeah,
they had a white dwarf on that. Yeah. Obviously, the answer is not to play a legal list.
Well, I could just at some point just do a whole show just ranting about Barak Zilfin, but we won't go there.
I'm sorry for whoever's playing Jazbaz.
Yeah,
you've gotten a lot of flack.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to add to that.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments what you want now this series is finished. Do you want some bonus episodes about Tempest Eye or generic Skyports, or we might have to do an FAQ reaction show. That might have
we're gonna make an FAQ reaction
live.
show.
Yes. We'll do it live. Okay, guys, look at it.
No one read the FAQ until we get on the show.
Yeah,
or we just scroll through and go.
Oh, I don't know if I can wait. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't be able to. That'd be impossible.
That'd be so boring to watch disasters go. Oh.
Yeah, it'd be like it's scroll. Ah, fuck.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say was there's been a lot of new subscribers recently. Like, I was very happy to see that we passed the 500 mark. Like,
nice.
Last weekend. Like, I think it was like Sunday I noticed it, but we're now actually already nearly at 550. And I've noticed a lot of people hitting like. We're getting a lot more likes on the show and stuff. So thank you everyone that is doing all of that. And Krohn, you also noticed a nice review. Someone placed someone, didn't you?
I want to just give a shout out to. I didn't realize how many different podcast services we're on. So like I googled our show once, and we're on like this Podbean and Altail. Someone left a nice review on Altail, so shout out to whoever that was. There is just a million different podcast servers that I didn't even know existed that this show's being streamed on. So shout out to all you guys listening on your favorite podcast medium, because
cool.
Good job finding them.
Yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, and thank you for joining me, guys.
Catch ya.
See ya.